In this video, we are going to dissect the stand-up comedy techniques used by Louis C.K. in his opening monologue of SNL. This was recorded about 8 years ago, and the reason I keep choosing SNL opening monologues is because they're all about 10 minutes in length, which is the perfect amount of time to get the most out of a tutorial video on stand-up comedy. Which leads me to say this: if you are a working comedian and if you have footage of yourself performing in front of an audience up to 10 minutes long, I would love to check it out and offer you a positive critique on all of the things you are doing correct that you might not even know yourself. So if you're interested in that service and you want to support the channel, drop into the description box and you will email me. I'd love to hear from you and check out the footage. All right, no messing around. Let's get right into the good stuff. Here we go. Louis C.K. SNL opening monologue.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's appropriate. Here's a joke. Why did the chicken cross the road? Because there was a black guy walking behind him. And he was nervous. He was new to the city, this chicken. And he was like, I feel like he's following me, but I'm not sure. So then he thought, maybe if I cross the road, then if he crossed the road, he's definitely following me. So he crossed the road, and the black guy went home. He's living his life. And the chicken was like, I'm such a racist. And he felt bad. About a month later, a black guy ate the chicken. Different black guy. I'm just telling you what happened. By the way, don't be upset, because this is not a racist joke.
Boom. Okay, we are going to interrupt right there because I always break it down. Right, the intro. That we can say was the intro, but absolutely he is coming out swinging. It doesn't feel at all like there's been any transitions. It feels like he's hit the audience with as many punchlines as he possibly can. Now, you might not think most of the punchlines happened. You might just think he's kind of continuously giving us observational point of view and more information on the story, which is also true. Both of those things are true. Let's break down what happened. He came out and he did a little opening line to break a little bit of tension. You got to say something, right? So he kind of goes on, yes, that's about the appropriate response, as if to say, you know, like that'll do. And the huge ovation he had, just like, yeah, that's probably about right. You can do that in your own comedy. You don't need to be one of the greatest of all time in order to kind of get away with that kind of cheekiness. You can absolutely be on stage and overplay the importance of you being in that room, or underplay it. If the audience give you a massive round of applause, you can go immediately, without writing or thinking anything, you can think, how am I going to play this round of applause? If the audience give you a real piss poor round of applause, if the MC isn't doing their job because they're shit, which, let's face it, they are, well, then you get on stage with a really kind of tepid round of applause. It's not great, and you can go, yeah, that's probably about right. Or you can play it the other way, going, you know, well, that's a little bit more than I was expecting, or something like that, and you can play with the same cheeky tone that Louis did. Now, then he went in, let me tell you a joke. It sets up this completely innocent backdrop, as if to say, let me tell you a joke. Well, with Louis, we all know it's going to go across the line. It always does. But how is he going to even get to the line by starting on something as just basic as, let me tell you a joke? Usually comedians come out and they do a little transition into, I was in the store the other day, or I was blah, 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 blah. But Louis comes out going, let me tell you a joke, and then he goes, why did the chicken cross the road? We've heard it 1,000 times over. What's going to be his spin on it? How is he going to establish the atmosphere of Louis C.K. in a room? And he goes, well, he was being followed by a black guy and he got nervous, and all of a sudden there's tension. There's huge tension, and then he breaks it immediately by going, well, he was, you know, as if to say he's not putting any pressure on him. He's just describing the characteristics of the chicken. He's putting all of that judgment on something that's absolutely absurd. And because he's using all of these techniques in stand-up comedy, like, yes, you can put a tense situation that you make up, you just make up pure fiction in your own head just to push buttons from your audience by saying something that you know is across the line. Well, then you put whatever opinion that reason that they're angry, you put it on something that's ridiculous. You absolutely can do this in your own writing. Is there a piece you're working on? And it doesn't need to be an offensive bit, but is there a bit you're working on in your writing as to it's not working out well? Maybe you're introducing a character like a friend or person you're in a relationship, and you're putting their opinion on a particular topic that you're discussing, and it's not working. Maybe by just turning it into a random stranger's opinion, maybe by changing your writing and turning it into your own opinion, or maybe by putting it into the opinion of an animal you encounter, as absurd as that is, you could change the story a little bit. And that's what this already has highlighted. It's about playing. It's about, like, what Louis tries to do is always create tension, always talk about things that you shouldn't really talk about, and get away with it because, one, he's able to make fun of himself better than nearly any comedian is in the world, and two, he's able to take you to an absolute absurd place while getting away with saying things he gives the illusion that he shouldn't say, even though he's actually not saying anything in this particular joke that's all that offensive. And that's what's very common with Louis's work. He doesn't actually normally say his opinion that's absolutely crazy and really offensive. He will always say something that is seen as very offensive and then get away with it, break the tension, even if he just admits to going, oh, I only said that just to hear that response. He does that sometimes, but there's always a get out of jail card. He doesn't just let that tension sit and have nowhere else to go. And you can get out of an offensive line even if you double down on it. The problem that new comedians have when they let the offensive energy sit and they don't have a top-up for it. They don't have a reasoning as to why they let the audience feel that offended. Because if you can let an audience feel offended, but you need somewhere else to go, they will feel offended for a moment, but if you don't have an out for them, you've just left them behind and they won't appreciate it from you. It's not that they're just too woke and they don't get the concept and, oh, I can't do offensive material in this particular room. That's usually not the case. Usually you can do the offensive material, you just don't have an out for it. And let's dive in deeper. We're going to hit play again and watch as he continues to thread the line and always get away with it. And another thing, before we watch it, I will say about the SNL audience, this is not the easiest audience, right? They will turn on you very quickly. And as we've discussed in other videos when we've watched SNL performances on this channel, it's a very well lit room, which for comedy is disastrous. You can see everyone's faces and you know exactly how well it's going. And we've all seen other comedians in this very spot, and non-comedians. We've all seen them die on their ass. It's always a big tell because they're not in a typical comedy club. This is a studio audience in a TV show. It's a very different setup. It's very much more difficult to get away with the kind of comedy that Louis C.K. is getting away with as only the GOAT can. Let's continue.
This joke is not racist. The chicken was racist. The chicken was definitely racist. But that's chickens. Chickens are very closed down and suspicious and prejudiced. You kind of can't blame them considering that their species murder rate is 100%. That's why chickens... That's why chickens are like... There's no friendly chickens. You can feed the same chicken every day. He's like, get the... I'm not coming over there, you black son of a bitch. I know what you want. I'm not in your soup yet, you Jew.
Okay, boom. Absolutely brilliant. Let's discuss this now. This is where you can really benefit from in your writing. So since I've been doing the critique videos and since I've been checking out all your footage, which is pretty much nearly a full-time job for me now, and I'm absolutely delighted to have it. Okay, so the number one problem I see time and time again is lots of new comedians have a lovely one-liner style joke and they're missing a huge section of material that they could get out of. Louis C.K. could have started. This is an example of what I'm just saying. Louis C.K. could have come out and said, "Did you ever notice how chickens don't trust anybody?" Well, that's because, like, none of them are going to survive. They are all end up going to be food. That's why they walk around like this. And then you could do the mimicking of a scared chicken. Fair enough, right? It's slightly humorous. It's nothing near as good as what Louis did, but that's maybe, right, at a guess, maybe that's where this joke came from. Maybe he's saying, okay, I could mimic a chicken that always is like this. Maybe that idea popped. What can I say about that? How can we work backwards? How can we get more from that? How can we get more from thinking all chickens end up as food? No wonder they're all so petrified, and you can't feed the same chicken. Even if you fed the same chicken every single day, you'd be still like, get away from me. It's like, yeah, and then he plays on it because he knows he can get away with it, so he pushes it further. Okay, so let's backtrack to all that. If you start with the premise of the image of trying to feed the same chicken and it's running away from you, and then you think, where else can we go? Well, you might go, okay, well, all chickens end up with food. There's another punchline there. But all of these are pretty much the same thing described in a different way. They're all acting like a punchline, which leads me to something I say in nearly all my videos. Every single piece of information we tell an audience needs to be followed with something humorous. Doesn't need to be followed with the funniest thing we can think of to say about that one particular piece of information, but we do need to reward the audience for listening to pieces of information about us with a joke, with something that's funny. And what Louis is doing here is he's so good at this, and he understands this theory so well, that he's no longer giving us information. He's giving us punchlines that have information in them. So a really good comedian, if we think of this as the arc, right? A really good comedian at a comedy club level, a club comedian, will be able to give you very small pieces of information followed by a lot of jokes about that one particular information, right? And this is one of the main differences between open micers and between the club level. This is one of the main. It's not so. Yes, the writing is better, but that naturally gets better if you continue to write, and the performance is better, but that naturally gets better if you continue to perform. You continue to watch the audience, see how you are being perceived by them, and going in a direction that they like you to be, as well as you're happy with it too. All of these things can be learned, but the main difference is Louis is staying longer in topics. He's backtracking. He has a joke and he goes, let's work backwards. And then he finally comes up with, why did the chicken cross the street? Well, because there was a black guy behind. Now, he knows the entire end of all of this story. You don't. It's kind of like a magic trick, like where it's like follow the ball into the cups or pick a card, and then the magician, you lose the card in the middle of the deck, and then the magician shuffles it up. But the magician knows what the card is at every single time. The magician knows the entire pattern of that trick. You don't. So you don't need to be writing material and think, oh, that's a good joke, I'll say that. And oh, I have this thing to say about that topic, I'll say that. And this is my marriage is, I'll say that. And all of a sudden there's 3 different completely disconnected topics on the page. No, if you have a joke that works, like Louis came up with, he got a premise that works. Let's say, for example, it was the way he wrote a joke with pointing out how scared chickens look all the time. It was a very small piece of material. And then he backtracked it. If you have a joke that works out well, backtrack it. What about the joke? What have you included in a joke? What objects, what topics can you discuss more in detail? Get more out of it and have that joke be the punchline to the entire bit. And so we put more weight around it when it finally happens. And then if that punchline is that strong, we can put a tag after that punchline, and maybe even another tag. And what Louis has done here is just add loads of tags. Every time he has a funny thing, he has another funny thing to say about it that cements his idea deeper in the ground about where he stands on an issue, no matter how absurd it is. Okay, before we overrun this video like we do all the others, let's continue on.
I like animals. I like thinking about animals. I like wondering what animals are thinking. Nobody knows what any animal thinks. You can ask an animal any question and the conversation is over. I wonder if giraffes, are giraffes up there going, whoa? It's too high! Hey, horse! Horse! What, man? Look at this, it's crazy! Yeah, you're a giraffe. Yeah, but look at my neck! That's why horses make that noise. If you're ever near a horse and he goes, it's because you suck.
Boom. Okay, look at that. Absolutely fantastic. How absurd is this? It's so funny. It's so silly. And watch what happened. He has brought the energy to a safe place again. He's able to do absurd material on just observational weird humor about the giraffe being so high, screaming with the vertigo, and then having a conversation with the horse, and the two of them having that bizarre connection with each other, right? And describing the personality of these animals in an absurd way. And watch what happened. He started off the set immediately hitting buttons and immediately getting to a place that's tense. Didn't go too tense, he got to a place that was tense, right? And he got laughs out of it because he kept it absurd. He kept it moving along, right? He used all the good techniques of comedy. Keep them laughing, keep them moving along. Don't offend them and make them laugh and then just sit there, because then they're going to feel just nothing but tension. And an audience feeling nothing but tension without any release is just going to get tired and, you know, be angry at you for leaving them there. As we've discussed earlier on, now he's on to really having the audience relax in completely safe territory. But you know, because he started near the line, you know it's going to come again. He's clearly given the audience a moment to just laugh at the absurdity and silliness and playfulness in his creation as a writer and as a comedian, and improvise, not so much improvising, but, well, pretending to be a giraffe. It's just so silly, but it gives that audience a little bit of a moment. So whatever you do, I'm always telling people, if you go into a tangent and you have a lot to say about a particular issue that's not directly connected to the main structure of your set, that's perfectly fine to do that. But make sure you come back to the structure. Make sure you come back to what they like best. Find out what it is about your writing that they love, that they like to hear the most about. And when you go on these tangents, make sure to come back to it. So you need to have more to say about it all the time. And yeah, you won't go wrong there. Let's continue on.
Does a moose look different when it's surprised? You ever see a moose? They always have this... I saw a moose once in person, or in moose. And maybe I was projecting, because I was like, oh my God, it's a moose! And he looked like he was going, oh my God, I'm a moose! Every moose looks like a dude who just got turned into a moose right before you looked at him. I'm thinking of buying a goat. Because I want to have a trash can that I can make love to. So that's why I'm going to buy a goat. So I can have sex with a trash can. I can do that with a trash can I have now, but a goat has a vagina. That makes it a lot better. I don't care that you're upset. I'm still getting the goat.
Okay, we have to jump in here. I see a lot of comedians, let's say if they do material and it doesn't work, right? And like, let's say they do like offensive material, or like another way of where it might not work is if they say a joke that the audience doesn't fully understand because the patter isn't worked out well. That's very common, right? It's not always, you don't always lose them because you try and shock them and don't yet know how to do offensive material, which is fine, you should try. But a good thing is, like, Louis, in a very jokingly way, says to the audience, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway. He sticks to the joke in a very comedic, silly sense, right? He's not kind of going, oh, don't be offended, or oh, it's like, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway. You can use this in your own stand-up, right? Where is there a joke you're working on at the moment where you can say, literally kind of give a heads up to the audience. Let's say there's a joke that's not working, but you notice something there. It's going to work with a bit of changing. Well, if you tell it after the fact, and if it doesn't work, if any piece of material doesn't work, you can highlight in the room just how, you know, absurd it is. It's like, yes, some of my ideas are going to be a little bit out there. I appreciate you taking that one on and trying your best to figure it out, because I'm trying to figure it out as well. You can go down that avenue. So we can use all of these kind of techniques that Louis is using. Sometimes we don't even notice he's using them. In fact, most of the time we don't know he's using them because he's so experienced. But that's what's going on here. He's digging his feet deeper down into the joke, and he's just turning around and telling the audience, I don't care what you think, I don't care. And in his own way, because he's so good at that, that in itself is what breaks all the tension. How can you be angry? And in a weird way, him saying, I don't care, I'm getting the goat anyway, is the same thing as him saying, I don't care, these are just jokes. So if you can figure out a way in which you can tell the audience that what just happened is, well, I'm trying to say the right words in the right order up here, and sometimes it's not going to work. Something along the lines of that. Now, I don't want to confuse this with, well, that joke didn't work. That's not what I'm talking about here. I don't like comedians getting on stage and telling the audience which joke didn't work. That's too cheap and easy, and your material deserves more respect. It deserves the most amount of chance it's going to get. It's perfectly fine to tell the audience that, well, maybe not all of these jokes will work, but some certainly will. Maybe do that early on in the night. Maybe do it later on in the night. But don't kill one joke and let the audience know that it was no good, because it is good. It just wasn't told in a good way. And as a comedian, you should give it more than that. You should give it more of a life. So what do I mean? What can we do? Well, we can say to the audience, there's going to be jokes coming your direction. And just like you, I haven't heard all these all that much either. I'm figuring this out. Something along the lines of that, because it's grassroots comedy. We can be honest with our progression to the audience. And guess what? It's also very humorous. It's a lovely place to come from. So just with that one little moment there with Louis C.K., we can think, wow, I can have a whole bit about being new to comedy, because you are new to comedy. That's what you know. You know what it's like to be new to comedy better than anyone else that you look up to in comedy. You know exactly what the open mic scene is like. You're doing it. You're the one experiencing that heart rush for the first time as you go up on stage. Talk about it. If you're at gig number 5 and you've done a few, like, say to the audience, this is gig number 5. I'm beginning not to shit myself that much in front of you, but don't worry. When you don't laugh at these jokes, I start to shit myself. So if you don't want me to shit myself on stage, well, please keep up and try and listen and try and get me through this set. Something a little bit like that. Now, I'm a kind of a dark comedian, so I will kind of go with that more disgusting side of things, but that's fine. But my point is, it's fine if you go clean. Do, by all means. I can never figure out clean. But what I'm trying to say is you can be honest with the audience, and you can dig your feet further into the ground and just have a moment where you tell them, I don't care about that, or I do care about this, or I want you to be with me on this, or, you know, watch out for these kind of jokes that are coming your way, or some of these jokes aren't going to work, but later on they will work. So thank you for being the audience where they don't work, because I have to go back and figure them all out. Something like that is really great. The audience appreciate it, and because you're starting out, they will believe it is true, because they know you're starting out, because you're at that shit event that you're at. Let's move on.
I love doing this. This is my favorite thing to do, stand-up comedy. I've been doing this for 32 years now. And it's been 32 years. And it's been going great for 4 years. 4 years, it's been great. 28 years, I struggled. But you know what? I was happy then, too. I was always happy when I was struggling, because when your life sucks, it just sucks, and you don't expect anything else. But when your life gets good, you start expecting it to, so you get unhappy. This is what happens. Like, now I stay in 5-star hotels, and I'm miserable. I used to stay in motels. Like, not even nice motels, like with a name like Motel 6. I stayed in just, like, motel. Not even a name. Like, they built it, and one guy's like, what should we name it? And the other guy's like, what? Last time you took a dump, did you name it?
Okay, let's jump in there. Absolutely fantastic. What can we learn from this? Okay, Louis C.K. is on stage talking about being a successful comedian for 4 years, and then the vast majority of his career, he struggled and he enjoyed it. And I just told you that this is all safe great. He's even doing this now. Talk about like material that's always going to work. A successful comedian talking about being a successful comedian. Great. Everyone loves to hear it. It's kind of like tales from behind the curtain, and done by a great comedian is always going to be humorous. I cannot stress enough that this is safe ground, and it's really interesting to everybody in that room in front of you, because if you talk about being a new comedian and you talk about the struggles and you talk about that one time you had to take the train for 6 hours to get to a crappy venue where they didn't have your name on the list but they gave you a 5 spot anyway, and you went upstage, and while you were doing it the power cut, and then you had to stop the gig early and everyone had to go outside, and then you missed your train on the way back and had to get a taxi to a different place and pay all this money. This is all humorous, right? You can have a whole 10-minute bit out of just that one little crappy story that I made up at the top of my head, even if it's not even true. Anything related to stand-up comedy, any material related to that is going to be safe. Any material related to yourself and the absurdity of your day-to-day is going to be safe, because guess what? Everyone in that room is as fucked up as you. They're at a shitty open mic, for Christ's sake. They're going to be messed up, you know? And if you're watching how-to tutorial videos on YouTube, you're also a little bit strange. Even talk about watching crappy videos on YouTube and making fun of that on stage in order to be a better comedian is all golden. Louis is just highlighting how easy it is. Granted, he's one of the best ever to do it, but he's highlighting how easy it is that the topics don't change. Like, if you're starting out as a comedian, you talk about starting out as a comedian. If you've been doing it 32 years, you talk about doing it 32 years. This is all just such easy stuff. You're going to have tons to say about it. You're not going to have writer's block talking about an external political issue that you don't even really fully understand, but you're trying to get jokes out of it. No. Keep it to basics. Keep it to what you know all about. And what you know all about is stand-up comedy, your experience in it, and who you are, your relationships, what you do for a living, and what you like and what you don't like. Keep all of your writing to that, and you cannot go wrong, as what's done here. Here we go.
You know those motels that are right on the highway, you drive by and you're like, who's inside of that? It's right on the highway. Like, literally, you open the door and a truck. And when there's a little shower, and as soon as you get in the shower, you're dirtier now. And they give you a little soap, and you have to peel off the paper, and then it just makes a rash. You can write your name in a skin disease with the...
Boom. Okay, right. This leads me very quickly to another point. I kind of hit on this earlier on. Where are the hidden punchlines in what you're saying? He didn't just finish with the joke, oh, motel, and it's got that one name, and it's on the side of the road. He said it's right on the side of the road. That could, like, right on the side of the road, that could have been a punchline. But no, he gives you another punchline. He gets a laugh out of right on the side of the road. But before you stop laughing, you've just got that image in your head of it being right on the side of the road. And then he says you open the door and a truck and that's another image straight away that's just as humorous as the last one. That's called a tag. So you have one punchline and then you immediately hit them with another punchline straight away. And now he's thinking, okay, what else? Let's say imagine him in his writing session. What else can I say? You can say about the shower, those tiny little showers, you step into it and you're dirtier. That's such an absurd thing to say about a shower, right? So if you think of something that you're writing about, can it do the opposite as to what it's supposed to do? You're supposed to step into the shower to get clean. Okay, if you're thinking about writing, okay, I go into the shower, I want to get clean. What about I step into this particular shower and it's dirtier? Maybe Louis had that line, you get into a shower and you're dirtier. What scenario can that be? And then later on you're thinking in your writing, oh, I got it, this dingy little motel. What can I say about going to a motel? How can I get that into my stories? Oh, I know, I got this line about being dirtier in the shower. So now, oh, it's so those showers are so small. You know, you think, oh, you're going to be touching the wall and the curtain's all dirty. You get in and you're instantly dirtier. And then you got that really small soap. What can we say? What can we exaggerate on the soap? So small soap, that's funny in itself because it's just so useless to anybody. We can go there, right? And then a lot of comedians do have lots of material about that particular soap, right? In these shitty motels. And then you'd think you write your name like on like a skin disease on your skin. Like all of these phrases that paint further the picture that he already set up. He's not happy enough to have one line because where's he going to go? A different topic? No, he's going to keep you on point and dig further, deeper into the ground in his opinion of what he's saying and make you laugh further along the way. What in your writing can you do? If you have a joke about something, where is the next tagline? What can we cement our ideas in? If you say something that the audience isn't going to agree with, you go, no, listen to me. It's because this, and you say something else. Or if you have, if you have a thing that happened to you and it was funny, what extreme example can we give on that thing that is funny? What extreme example can we give of the thing that happened to you when you were sitting on the park bench and a dog came up and, thought you were his and you were petting it and the guy came over and gave out to you for petting the dog? Well, that's just a thing I thought up in the top of my head. But if we think of a punchline to that, well, what further thing can we think of? Is there a movie quote we can put in there? Is there a pop culture reference we can put in there? Can we make a whole bit out of nothing that didn't exist 5 seconds ago? This is what comedy really is. It's not just about finding a punchline, a funny thing to say that to finish up all this information we gave the audience. No, continuously make them laugh. And using the basics, all of a sudden we can see just how easy it is to do that. Let's move on.
And there's always 2 beds, and one bed has a big pool of sperm, right? I don't know what. Big, deep pool with a current. It's high tide in the sperm pool. Lash the boats.
Boom. My perfect example. Just look at that. Like one bed, there's always 2 beds, and one bed has this big sperm. Big stained sperm. Great. Gets a big laugh. It's so disgraceful, disgusting, the picture he paints. Gets a big laugh. And it's so big it's got its own current. So the exaggeration comes in right now. He just does it every single time. He sets you up. It's got 2 beds. And one bed has a big pool of sperm in it. Why is that? Gets a laugh. Straight away it's got its own current. Gets another laugh. It's a second punchline. High tide at the sperm. Gets a third laugh. So he's just continuously doubling down. If you have material that makes an audience laugh, double down. Don't let them back up to breed. There's always an extra funnier thing in there. Now, Louis is moving at a pace that is rapid because he knows this is a tight 10-minute set he has. You're not going to move at this pace, and that's perfectly fine. Don't wreck your own head and ruin your own life by comparing yourself to this. This is all to be done in your own style. If you're a slower comedian, that's fine, but it doesn't matter what style and what pace you perform at, usually too fast, but it doesn't matter because all of these techniques can be used no matter what kind of a style of comedian you are. You can still use the idea of the tag. If you have one punchline that works, that means the audience are telling you, yes, we like this material. We like when you talk about it. We laughed at this moment, which tells you, I need more of this. It's the audience way of telling you, please give us more of this. Don't just forget this connection we have and then try and describe a whole different topic and try and win us over again. Every time you have a new topic of information to cover, you have to win the audience over on that particular topic. Remember that. It's better to stay in what works for you rather than removing them away from the moment. Let's move on.
I stayed in places like that for years. I was perfectly happy. Because what are you going to do, complain at a motel? What are you going to call the front desk at a motel? I want to speak to the manager. Well, he's dead. Somebody duct taped him to a chair and shot him. Because he owed them $15. Now I stay in beautiful 5-star hotels, and I'm miserable. I'm always upset. First of all, I don't like them. I'm not used to it, so I don't like the fanciness. I don't like that they tie your bathrobe into a swan that you have to dismantle. And I don't like that when you call room service, they have to say a long, flowery hello before you get to talk about food. This is how to answer the phone at room service at a fancy hotel, like, hello, I hate it. I never let them. I call down, they're like, hello, stop. Bacon, eggs, and coffee, don't read it back. That's it. I'm mean.
Now look at that. Here's what happens when you don't necessarily need to have any pause moments, when your set is so good, what happens is the audience, it's almost like they tap out. Here's what happens. I've seen it a few times in the critique videos I do. A performer is doing, and I've seen it live too, obviously many times. A performer is doing so well that the audience have no choice but to clap. Right? There's a lot of psychology going on when that happens. One, it's a way for the audience to tell you to decide as a group, because one person always starts to clap and then everyone else just joins in the clap, and then it's a way for all of us to tell you we have loved this, that this is working out very well, because you haven't given them the natural moment. You haven't given them like a moment of silence. Now, if Louis C.K. was doing an hour or an hour and a half, he would have moments of like little transitions here would be more obvious. He doesn't have that. This is a king of 10 minutes. He can do 10 minutes anytime. Let's go. So he doesn't need to have a moment where it's a little bit of silence. There's no problem with having that as a starting out comedian. Do whatever you get to in order to have the set nice and professional and as charismatic and as funny consistently as you can. Whatever way you can get there, do. But my point here is what will happen if you don't give an audience. When they give you that round of applause, one, yes, it tells you that we love this. Two, it's a moment for them to say, give us a moment. Just give us something so we can, because the laughs are coming so fast, they don't want to miss one in the future. So it's almost like the audience are out of breath. You're just too much for us. And they're not going to give you a round of applause unless that's the case. They're not going to give you a round of applause with a laughter, because while they laugh, they're not listening, right? And they don't want to miss anything. So a kind of a default subtle mechanism is to start clapping, because if I'm clapping while laughing, I'm not paying attention and therefore I'm not listening to you. So just give me a moment. And then when I stop, oh, sorry, it's too close to the microphone. That's really annoying, right? When I stop clapping, you may continue. It's almost like the most polite way without just shouting, can you please stop talking? You're killing all of us. You know, so in a good way, hopefully. So it's just such a lovely little tell that he's rocking it quite that hard, because the laughs maybe are the most consistent I've seen at an SNL. Maybe more than anybody I've seen at SNL. If you think a comedian rocks it harder at SNL than Louis C.K., please let me know and I will dissect their performance. How about that, right? Let's continue.
Also, these San Francisco hotels, you get used to it, so you start getting upset when things aren't perfect. Like one time, my laundry wasn't there. I had laundry, I was waiting for it, so I called housekeeping. Now, they don't answer the phone all fancy at housekeeping. This is how she answered the phone. She goes, hello? And I actually said this to her. I said, do you want to try that again? Yes, I'm letting you know about me. That's what I said. Did I reach you on your personal phone today? So she says, what do you need, sir? And I said,
okay, can you be an asshole in your... Can you be an asshole in your comedy and get away with it by not being an asshole on stage? That's interesting. Or can you be a nice guy and be more honest on stage? Like, are you the kind of comedian that, well, maybe you want to make a fictitious way that you're this really nice person outside and your job is so caring and this, and now it's time to get on stage and go, ah. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you're really nice on stage and go, I can't believe I did this to this person. I'm just telling you about me. And once you, yet again, open up and have that moment with the audience where, yep, I'm telling you about me. That's who I am. They have to go, oh, okay, this is all just jokes. When you highlight something, even if it's not true, when you highlight something to the audience and you tell them directly, oh yeah, this is me, they will kind of respond in a way that, oh, it's not him. Oh, it's not her. It's oh, this is just, oh, we're all just having a laugh. Yeah, I forgot for a moment. I was going to get all offended there. And so that's kind of secret to this kind of comedy. In this way, the way Louis did it, other people have different ways of going about getting away with offensive material. But Louis digs his feet in and goes, no, this is me. I'm just telling you a little bit about me. And the audience go, oh yeah, he's probably not that guy, you know. So a little bit to think about in your own writing. Can you be a fictional version of yourself in the stories you tell? It's a whole other angle in which you can be funny. Again, always finding the hidden punchlines in your stories that already exist. Let's get to the end.
well, I don't have my laundry, and I gave it to you. She said, you didn't give it to me. I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Because I get to be really mad? I said, I gave it to your department and I was promised, like it's in the Constitution that you get your laundry. I was promised I'd have it in 24 hours and it's been longer. She said, what do you want me to do about it? So I got really mad. I said, listen, ma'am, first of all, you can hear in my voice that I'm white. And by the way, I'll defend that right now. I will defend that. Because look, it's wrong that white people get preferential treatment. It's wrong. But as long as they do, what's going on at this hotel? I'm supposed to get the best because I'm white, which is awful and wrong. But where is it right now?
So, absolutely amazing. He's saying something that's so ridiculous. And yet again, with the same type of topic, check that out. He opens up with why the chicken crossed the road line, right? And we all know where that went. Lots of tension. And then he broke it off, the tension with the very little tension, just absurd humor with the long neck of the giraffe talking to a horse, right? And then he's gone through all these things about his personal thing, keeping it personal to him all of a sudden. So rather than being with the controversial chicken crossing the road line and rather than being with the absurdity, he's now talking about his status in the world and how he used to be nothing and just stressed all the time as a comedian, and he's talking about all these things that are safe and he has them so well, he's making them laugh so hard, they're applauding, saying please give us a breath, and now just towards the end he's raising that tension across the line again. See how he's playing with the dynamics of the range of a set, of a comedy set, because he knows he's getting to the end. So he started off close to the line and then he brought them back in for the majority of the set, and then he's finishing close to the line again. He wants to raise that hair in the back of your neck again. Oh shit, where's he going to go with this? How dare he say on the phone, you understand I'm white, right? And then he dives deeper. I will defend that joke, because since it's supposedly that us, you know, he defends the joke as you hear, right? Here we go. I don't need to say his lines because I'm not going to do them justice. But so where in your set can you double down? Where in your set can you play with, oh, that's a little bit of a hard-hitting line. How about I write more of it, break it in two, put that at the beginning and this at the end? That's what he did, right? He had all of the race material he probably wrote, you know, back to back. And he goes, let's break it. Put this at the beginning, raise tension, give the audience about 6 minutes of relaxed, good, clean comedy, right? And then, boom, let's hit them again at the end. It's just one way of doing it. If you have a long thing, you can absolutely split it in half and separate it. Or you can put it into chunks and separate it into your set. The great thing, as I always say, is the writing is already done. You've hopefully already got a set you're working on. If you haven't performed, get a set, get on stage, and then find out what the hell I'm talking about. Because if you haven't yet performed and you're watching this video, the only thing you have left to do is go perform, because then my videos are going to start being really beneficial to you. But you got to perform first. Without performing, they're only a little bit entertainment, which I hope you enjoy, but get performing. If this channel does one thing, it's getting you on stage and having you experience what that's like for the first 50th or 100th time. Okay, let's get through it.
So she got sick of me. And she says, do you want to speak to a manager? I said, yes. So the manager comes on. Hello, manager speaking. I said, I'm very upset. He was like, oh, I'm so white. Sorry, white sir. What white happened today? I said, I don't have my laundry. He was like, oh. Ah! He said, I will conduct an investigation. I was like, yes! That's a very white thing to do. I want a white investigation of my laundry. So he said, I'll call you back in 5 minutes or less. So I'm waiting in my room like, Then the manager calls me back and he says, sir, I looked into the matter and I do need to ask you one question. Are you certain that you gave us laundry? And as soon as he said it, I was like, I did not give you.
Absolutely incredible. It just doesn't get any better. How about you, like that last whole bit, right? So he has a whole bit on wringing the laundry and having the attitude and expressing himself in the way he is, and then the whole joke with the race and I'm white and it's awful that we were treated better than anyone else. So, but since we are white, that whole bit, and then getting onto the manager and having it 5 minutes or less, finally someone on the case, and he thought, oh, important to himself. So he waits in the room, and then he realized, oh no, I never sent it in. Is there something that leads to a brick wall like that you can just come up with at the top of your head? Can you put yourself in a scenario where you were at some mundane thing that you do day in and day out, and you said, oh, and you made a mistake. You made a mistake in your own head, but there is no punchline. That's perfectly fine. The punchline is the fact that you're an idiot and you didn't send in the thing, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do this on time, or whatever it is. Can you come up with something where the journey of enjoyment for your audience is in a description of getting there, and then you being an idiot and not doing the most basic things so that you're in the wrong the entire time can be the punchline, can be the joke. It almost feels like Louis kind of said, oh, we only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to wrap this up and have it go nowhere. He absolutely could have continued. He goes, did you ever do that? Did you ever accuse somebody of something and it ended up being your fault? And then you could even say, I just double down. I just say, no, it's your fault. And then the person goes, well, but you didn't do the thing. Yeah, I don't care. You can double down in all these absurd ways and express yourself as being the villain, or you can express yourself as being the victim. It doesn't really matter, because the journey and how we got there in this instance with this writing and this particular end section of the performance was in the journey of getting there. It didn't matter about the punchline. It's entertaining to be there. It's joke after joke after joke after joke. I hope you can't hear all those sirens in the video, but we're at the end of the video anyway. Only 1% of you are still here. The rest of you have gone on to do something far more exciting, like have a big wank.